Give Stacy a real hand of welcome to Seattle Revival tonight.
I want to start by saying that I have really learned a lot, and I've learned a lot more recently that I've been able to interpret some of my earlier years through what has happened, even through the renewal and even through the things that have happened to me. So I want to go back by saying, I was raised in a Catholic church. And because when I was in a Catholic church, we never really had any teaching on prophetic. We never had any teaching on dreams or visions, or we didn't even understand it. And then when I was 16 years old, I became a Christian in the Plymouth Brethren Church, which is a very, very conservative denomination. And in that church, we never had any teaching on prophecy. We never had any idea of God speaking. We kind of said he doesn't speak today at all, except through the Bible. And so when Wes began to understand some of the things about the Holy Spirit when he was in Baptist Bible College, and I was at the University of British Columbia studying languages to become a language teacher, it was like totally new to me. And so one time we had gone from the Baptist Bible College, we went to one of the professors there had been to some John Wimber meetings, and he suggested that we go and check it out. And I remember going to that church and seeing, I didn't actually go for the beginning part, I only went for the ministry time, and seeing all kinds of manifestations happening to people and being very critical and being very judgmental, thinking, why would God do that to somebody, and like, that's disgusting, and just really having a pharisaical attitude. So that's probably, judge not, the same thing that you judge, it'll happen to you, So, but I remember not understanding it at all. And then on the other hand, growing up, I had some very prophetic experiences. I was, when I was in the Catholic Church as a very little girl, I had a dream. And I had a dream that when Jesus appeared to me, and I was standing at the feet of Jesus. And in the Mass at the Catholic Church, we used to say this confession of faith: Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. Well, I had a dream, and I was standing at the feet of Jesus, and all of a sudden, he began to speak, and his voice was like thunder. And all he said was, Christ has died. And as soon as he began to speak, it so terrified me. It so struck me and pierced me with the fear of the Lord that as a little girl, I fell at his feet, and I wouldn't look up. I didn't see anything higher than his knees. And I remember it to this day. And he said, Christ has died, Christ is risen, and then Christ will come again. And I knew the emphasis was on he is coming again. And I had never read the Bible. I was only 5 or 6 years old. And so I had that experience, and that dream impacted me with the fear of the Lord, so that all my life I believed in God. And I spent my life looking for God. And so I was always looking, where is he, and listening, and nobody would ever tell me. And I remember asking my teachers at school, what about God, and what about this? And nobody ever preached the gospel to me till I was 16 years old. And then even as a Plymouth Brethren, I was going to university, and I remember distinct experiences where the Lord spoke to me. One time when I was at university in my second or third year of university, I was studying French and German philosophy in order to get a double major in French and German. And I was studying Sartre and Nietzsche and all these people. And I had this idea that, if God is true, then he will be able to stand the test. So I'll just put him through every, test that there is. And I remember becoming so confused that I was on the verge of losing my faith, because I just couldn't fit everything together. And one day when I was out in the middle of the university campus, I was going like this, and I'm saying, oh God, I'm so confused. And the word of the Lord came to me, and it was this Bible verse out of the Old Testament. It said, let God be true and every man a liar. And I heard that. I heard God speak to me, and I knew it was the voice of the Lord. And I had never had 1 ounce of teaching on prophecy that God would even do that. But I knew it was God, and that verse came, let God be true and every man a liar. And I had a choice to make at that time. Would I choose to keep putting him to the test, or would I just let him be true? And even though I didn't understand everything, I would say God is true, and I would begin to examine the others under that light. God is true. All the men are liars. And let's put them to the test and not God. And everything changed as I did that. And I remember just saying, let God be true, every man a liar. And by my 5th year of university, I was debating my professors. Before, they were screwing me up and making me all confused. And by my 5th year, I was saying, well, what about this? And I would always be jarring them in my philosophy classes and stuff. And another time, one time I was in my university dorm room, and you have to imagine, like, I am Plymouth Brethren. We don't believe in the gifts of the Spirit. We don't believe in prophecy. We don't believe. We're taught that that's totally gone. I mean, I am so sincere that we used to wear head coverings on our head, little doilies on our head. I would wear that everywhere I went. I was like this most sincere Plymouth Brethren you can ever imagine. I was like sincere. If I went to the Baptist church, I'd put my head covering on, and they would say, well, why do you have a doily on your head? Well, haven't you read in the Bible, the women are supposed to have their heads covered. I would, try and teach them all these things. But I was really, had no teaching on prophecy. And one night, when I was in my second year of university, the glory of the Lord came into my room. I was all by myself reading my Bible. I was reading Isaiah chapter 40. And it talks about the sovereignty of God, that God is the sovereign Lord over all the nations, and all the nations to him are nothing, yea, less than nothing. They're like a drop in the bucket. And as I was reading that, literally, like a presence of the Lord began to fill the room. The entire room lit up. I began to cry under the presence of the Lord. And I had no grid for this, no understanding. And as he spoke, he began to speak to me through the scriptures, how he was Lord of all the nations. And in my spirit, he kind of took me around the nations of the world and showed me how he was Lord of everything. And I was like amazed, and I was weeping. And it seemed like minutes. And when I looked at my watch later, it was like 3 or 4 hours had gone by, just in the glory of the room, and literally the whole room lit up. And he took me from Isaiah 40, showing me how he's the Lord of all the nations. And then he turned to me and he said, and now I want to show you I'm Lord of you. And he began to deal with me. He told me to marry Wesley, as clear as I was thinking, Wes wanted to be just his father owned a fruit stand, and he wanted to grow up and be king of the fruit stand. And I wanted to be an interpreter and travel all over the world. And I just thought, oh no, and he was right then on the mission field in Africa. And I was studying, and I was thinking, I just can't marry Wes, because I'm going to be an interpreter for international affairs, and I'm going to travel all over the world, and he's going to be king of the fruit stand, and this is not going to work. And besides, I always had this intuitive knowledge that he was going to be a pastor someday, and I thought, oh, yuck, a pastor's wife, yuck. Because we were in Plymouth Brethren Church. It was really small, and they all played the organs, and I couldn't play the organ. And I just didn't fit that mold. I was on a career, I was going to go somewhere and do something. And the Lord spoke to me, and he said, and I'm Lord of the nations, and I'm Lord of you. And I want you to marry Wesley. And I had to lay down everything since I was 12 years old. I wanted to be an interpreter. And I had to lay it all down. That's why I became a teacher instead. And I always said, there's 2 things I'm never going to be, as a nurse and a teacher. Everybody's a nurse and a teacher. And I became a teacher. So you never say never to the Lord. You never say, you just never know what's going to happen. And then we planted a Baptist church. And we were very eager for God. We just wanted more of God. And Wes by then had been to a couple of vineyard conferences, and he knew that there was more, and he was kind of seeking. But we had no understanding for what the Lord was going to do. And one night, these 2 prophetic women came to our church, which we'd invited, and they'd ministered in a few words of knowledge. And at the end, we went to a back room. It was so small. It was hardly any bigger than this, this little stage. And there was about 8 of us crammed in there, and I was sitting over in the corner. And as they were praying for somebody else, in a really deep ministry time, the Spirit of the Lord began to move on me. And I'm telling you, I was fully clothed, in my right mind. I was just sitting there. They weren't even praying for me. And the Spirit of the Lord came on me, and I began to shake. My leg began to shake. You ever seen, Wes always describes it like Bugs Bunny. He swallows the earthquake pills, and he starts, the road runner, and he starts to shake, and then the other leg starts to shake. Well, as this leg began to shake, I kind of put my hand on my knee. Then the other one began to shake, and I put both hands on my knees, and my whole body began to shake off the chair. And I was so embarrassed, because my mind, you have to know this, all the time, my mind is perfectly normal. I'm here. That's why I shut my eyes, so I don't have to look at myself. Because I never asked for this. I never wanted this. I had judgments on people who did what I do. I thought they were half nuts, and I was an intellectual. And I wasn't going to, I didn't do that kind of thing. And they had emotional problems, but I was, all together. I was kind of like your pastor here. I remember seeing him and hearing his testimony rolling down the, Toronto Airport Vineyard Church. And his wife was worse than him. The next time I went to Toronto, you won't believe this. There she was, the whole group of them. They were trying to go up the elevator. And so they were kind of laughing as they walked by us. We waved, we were talking in the foyer. They get on the elevator, and they're laughing up the elevator, and it's a glass elevator. We're kind of, it's kind of making a scene. So we're all looking at them going up the glass elevator laughing, and we just thought, haha, and we kept talking in the foyer. The next thing we know, they're coming back down the elevator, laughing their heads off. It's a glass elevator, and they can't find their floor. They went up and down 3 or 4 times. They couldn't get off. And they're lying on their backs, kicking, their feet are kicking up in the air. And it's a glass, they were really making a spectacle of themselves. But anyway, then when that happened to me, suddenly that day when we weren't even praying for me and that began to shake, that kicked off something in my life that I never knew existed. And that was the gift of prophecy. And up until then, I understand this now in hindsight, but never having any teaching in the Catholic Church, never having any teaching in the Plymouth Brethren Church, never having any teaching, I went to Baptist Seminary, never understanding anything about the gift of prophecy. When the Spirit of the Lord came upon me, suddenly with the visible eyes, somebody said, I think that's for something. That shaking, that manifestation, and the gift of prophecy was released, whereas before I only used it for myself. I thought everybody heard God like me. I thought everybody, kind of had this intuitive thing. It became an explosion where I began to use the gift of prophecy for other people. And I don't know why it comes with shaking, and I'm never ever trying to shake. I don't try to shake, I don't try not to shake. Sometimes I don't, but 90% of the time, when the Spirit of the Lord moves on me, it's just the form He's given me. I thought it would grow out of it or something, but I've had it for, about 10 years, and it still happens that way. And so I have learned, though, to count it as a blessing. The foolish things of God are wiser than men. The foolishness of God is wiser than men. And I used to think, that's so foolish. That's like stupid, when I saw it on somebody else. But now I understand that it's a release of something to give away. And now I kind of, like Paul said, I glory in the cross. I glory in my shame, in those things that are foolishness, so that the life of God can be released to others. And I tell you, it has been a blessing, not only to me, it's exploded, it's gone more than I ever thought, but it also has blessed other people. And so I just want to say that whatever God gives you, whether it's the form that I have, whether it's a different form, whether it's a gift of service, treasure it. The gifts of the Holy Spirit are treasures. Treasures in earthen vessels to be just shared and, given away. So bless you.